Greetings, Loremasters. Tonight our chronicle covers the harsh, frozen lessons carved into the landscape of Skyrim, a province where the wind cuts like a glass dagger and history is written in dragon blood. We're going to walk the path of the Dragonborn, stripping away the game mechanics to look at the philosophy hidden beneath the frost. From the chopping block to the highest peaks, we'll see how a prisoner with no name changed the fate of the world. Imagine standing on a cart, your hands bound with rough hemp rope, the wood creaking beneath your boots as the carriage navigates the rocky, uneven roads of the Falkreath Hold. The air smells of pine resin and impending snow. To your right, a horse thief is hyperventilating. To your left, a rebel soldier accepts his fate with a stoic silence that is both admirable and terrifying. Let's be honest, in the real world, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Helgen, let alone the dragon attack. Most of us would have frozen to death or tripped over a root while running away. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment below telling me where you are in the world and what time it is. I love seeing the global map of our little campfire circle. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The screen fades from black, and those iconic words drift through the fog. Hey, you. You're finally awake. It is perhaps the most famous opening in modern gaming history, but beneath the meme status lies the first and most potent lesson of our journey, the power of the clean slate. You start the game with absolutely nothing. You have no gear, no gold, and most importantly, no history. Unlike other RPGs where you might select a complex backstory or a defined origin, The Elder Scrolls thrives on the concept of the prisoner. This brings us to our core in-game fact. You begin your journey as an unnamed prisoner being transported to Helgen for execution alongside Ulfric Stormcloak and his soldiers. The Imperial Legion, efficient and bureaucratic, has decided that your lack of paperwork is fatal. You're a variable they cannot account for, and in the rigid structure of the Empire, unaccounted variables are best removed. But there is a profound liberation in this hopelessness. When you step off that cart, the game asks you who you are. You can be anyone, an orc berserker, a high elf mage, a Khajiit thief. The lesson here is that your past, whatever it was before the cart, has ceased to exist. In the face of death, you're granted a terrifying freedom. It suggests that life's greatest potential often rises from its lowest point. When you have nothing left to lose, you become dangerous. You become limitless. As the roll call proceeds, we encounter a fascinating detail that many players gloss over in their rush to character creation. When your turn comes, the Imperial captain says, he's not on the list. Legate Ricker, tired and bound by duty, orders you to the block anyway. This moment sparks a massive community debate that has raged for over a decade. Is your absence from the list a simple clerical error, or is it metaphysical evidence of your divine nature? Many fans subscribe to the theory that the protagonist is a Shezareen, a mortal avatar of Lorcan, the missing god of creation. Because you are a divine anomaly inserted into reality to fix a broken world, the Imperial bureaucracy literally cannot have a record of you. You didn't exist until the moment the cart started rolling. You're a glitch in the simulation of Tamriel, a being of pure agency in a world of scripted fates. This theory aligns with the obscure lore surrounding the prisoner archetype. In the deeper, stranger texts of the lore, specifically referencing dialogues from Sotha Sil in The Elder Scrolls Online, the prisoner is described as a being who can see the walls of the world, the narrative, and the door, the way to change it. While everyone else in Skyrim is bound by causality and their nature, the prisoner is the only one who can truly choose. But let's return to the cobblestones of Helgen. The headsman is sharpening his axe. The sound is rhythmic, grating, and horribly real. The priestess of Arkay begins her rites, droning on about the 8 divines, only to be interrupted by a Stormcloak soldier who's in a hurry to die. My ancestors are smiling at me, Imperial. Can you say the same? He sneers, seconds before his head rolls into the basket. It's a brutal, visceral reminder of the stakes. And then, the sky breaks. Alduin, the World Eater, descends. He's not just a dragon, he's a force of nature, a shard of the time god Akatosh sent to end the current distinct period of history, the Kalpa. The chaos that follows is absolute. Fire rains down, shattering stone towers like they are made of sugar glass. The screams of the dying mix with the roar of the inferno. Here is where the lesson of the clean slate pivots to survival. In the smoke and confusion, the social hierarchy dissolves. General Tullius, the leader of the Legion, is shouting orders that no one can hear. Ulfric's Stormcloak is just another man trying not to burn. You, the prisoner with bound hands, are suddenly on equal footing with the most powerful men in the province. Disaster is the great equalizer. You stumble through the ruins, guided by either Ralof or Hadvar. This choice, Stormcloak or Imperial, is the first stroke of paint on your blank canvas. But notice how instinctive it is. You aren't choosing based on complex geopolitical analysis yet. You are choosing based on who yelled at you to come this way first, or perhaps who seemed less likely to cut your head off 5 minutes ago. As you navigate the burning keep, you encounter an Chistwe, obscure lore tidbit, hidden in the architecture of the tutorial itself. As you make your way through the torture room, if you side with Hadvar, or the barracks, you are essentially traversing the belly of the beast. But did you know that the dragon language, or Dvarzul, which you hear Alduin shouting, operates on a metaphysical level where the word is the deed? When Alduin shouts Yoltur Shul, Fire Inferno Sun, he isn't commanding fire. His voice is arguing with reality that the air should be fire, and reality loses the argument. You are witnessing a debate between a god and physics, and you are caught in the crossfire. Surviving Helgen requires you to scavenge. You take armour off a dead body, perhaps a bit ghoulish, but necessary. You pick up an iron sword, rusted and dull. You mix potions from dust and charred skeever tails. This is the essence of the clean slate philosophy, resourcefulness. The game forces you to realise that titles, reputation and wealth mean nothing if you cannot adapt to the immediate crisis. The gore is explicit here. You see charred corpses, bodies crushed under rubble, and the visceral spray of blood as you fight your way through the spiders and soldiers in the caves beneath the keep. It's a baptism by fire and blood. The Skyrim you're entering is not a high fantasy fairy tale. It is a brutal, cold, indifferent land where the weak are eaten, sometimes literally by giant spiders. Finally you emerge from the cave. The light blooms, blindingly bright after the gloom of the caverns. You step out onto a ridge overlooking the valley. Below you lies the pine forests of Riverwood, the rushing white water of the river, and in the distance the ominous snow-capped peak of the throat of the world. And further still, the ruins of Bleakfall's Barrow clawing at the sky. The cart ride is over, the execution is cancelled. You're standing in the wild with a stolen sword and a heart pounding against your ribs. This moment defines the rest of the game, and indeed the rest of the lessons we will discuss. You have survived the end of the world, or at least the end of Helgen. You have been stripped of identity and forced to forge a new one in the fires of crisis. The lesson of the prisoner is that we are not defined by the circumstances of our birth, or the list we weren't on, but by what we do when the chains are cut. Most people would run. They would flee to the border, try to cross into Cyrodiil or Hammerfell, and put as much distance between themselves and the dragons as possible. But you look at that valley and you see potential. You see a world that needs saving, or perhaps conquering. The transition from helpless prisoner to survivor is instantaneous, but the transition to hero takes time. As you walk down the path toward Riverwood, maybe picking some mountain flowers or catching a butterfly, we've all done it, the horror of Helgen begins to fade into a dull ache in the background. But the reality remains, the dragons have returned. The clean slate wasn't just for you, it was for Skyrim itself. The old order is burning down. The stalemate of the civil war is about to be broken by a third party with wings and bad breath. You are the variable, you are the uncertainty. It's worth noting that the developers, Bethesda, designed this opening to be a psychological reset for the player. Todd Howard and his team understood that to feel truly immersed, you had to feel vulnerable first. If you started as a badass commander, the growth wouldn't feel earned. By starting you as a nobody, every piece of iron armor feels like a victory. Every wolf pelt feels like a trophy. And so, we leave the smoking ruins of Helgen behind us. The air is crisp, the river is loud, and the path ahead is open. You are alive. And in a world like this, that is the only victory that counts for now. But survival is only the first step. To thrive in this land, you will need more than just a sword and a pulse. You will need to understand the ancient powers that govern the sky itself. You will need to learn how to listen before you can learn how to shout. The road from Helgen leads us inevitably to the High Hrothgar, 7,000 steps closer to the heavens. If the first lesson was about surviving the chaos, the second is about mastering the silence that follows. We are talking about the way of the voice, a philosophy that stands in stark, quiet contrast to the violent cacophony of the rest of Skyrim. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, Ulfric shouting for independence, Tullius shouting for order, Heimskr in Whiterun literally shouting about Talos until your ears bleed, the most powerful beings in the province are the ones who barely whisper. Our journey takes us up the throat of the mountain. It's a trek every player remembers. The biting wind, the frost trolls that serve as the ultimate vibe check for low-level characters, and the pilgrims reading the etched tablets along the path. These tablets tell the history of the Dragon War, a time when humanity was enslaved by the Dwemer. They speak of Kine, the goddess of the storm, who took pity on men and taught them the Thu'um, the shout, so they could fight back. This brings us to our core in-game fact. The Greybeards, an ancient order of monks, live in seclusion at the peak of the throat of the world. They are the masters of the voice, yet they rarely use it. When you finally arrive, freezing and out of breath, their leader Angir explains their creed. They teach that the voice is worship. It is not a weapon of war, but a way to glorify the gods. To them, using the shout for violence is a perversion of its true purpose, a deviation from the way of the voice, established by Jurgen Windcaller. This philosophy is incredibly frustrating for many players, and indeed, for the Dragonborn initially. You have this incredible power, the ability to breathe fire or blast enemies off cliffs, and these old men in robes are telling you to chill out and meditate on the word fuss. But therein lies the lesson. True power requires restraint. If you shout all the time, the words lose their meaning. If you use force for every problem, you become no better than the dragons you are destined to fight. The Greybeards demonstrate that silence often carries more weight than shouting. When they do speak, the very mountain shakes. Their whispers can kill. This is a terrifying level of power held in check by sheer discipline. It forces us to ask, do we speak because we have something to say, or just to fill the silence? However, the lore runs deeper and darker than simple pacifism. Here is our obscure lore tidbit. The founder of the Greybeards, Jurgen Windcaller, wasn't always a pacifist. He was a mighty warlord, a tongue who shouted down castle walls. But after suffering a catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Red Mountain, a pivotal event involving the dwarves and dark elves in Morrowind, he spent 7 years meditating on his failure. He came to the conclusion that the Nords lost because their use of the voice was arrogant and prideful. He realised that the voice was strongest when it was used to honour the sky, not to conquer the earth. He returned, faced 17 other shouting warlords, and, without attacking once, swallowed their shouts for 3 days until they exhausted themselves and bowed to his wisdom. The pacifism of the Greybeards isn't about weakness. It's about a defence so absolute it renders offence useless. This creates a fascinating friction with the Blades, the other faction vying for your attention. Delphine, the last of the Blades, views the Greybeards' inaction as cowardice. She wants you to weaponize your gift immediately to kill dragons. This conflict sparks a community debate that has divided the fanbase for years. Who is right? The Blades, who want to save the world through action but risk repeating the mistakes of the past? Or the Greybeards, who understand the cosmic weight of the Dragonborn soul but are willing to let the world burn if it is the will of the Time God? The game doesn't give you an easy answer. You need the Greybeards to learn the words of power, but you need the drive of the Blades to actually go out and use them. It's a balancing act between contemplation and action. Let's look at the roar of the Greybeards. Early in the game, after you kill your first dragon at the watchtower near Whiterun, a thunderous sound rolls across the province. Dovahkiin! Even the Jarls in their halls pause. Guards look up nervously. It's a summons that cannot be ignored. This moment underscores the sheer scale of the power we're dealing with. The Greybeards don't send a courier. They shout your name across the map. It is the ultimate power move. It says, "We are here, we are watching, come to us." When you train with them, they teach you words like row, balance, and da, push. But they also teach you the meaning behind the words. To shout fire You must feel the fire. You must understand its nature, not just as something that burns, but as something that cleanses and consumes. To shout clear skies, you must internalize the concept of peace forcing away the storm. It's a metaphysical linguistics class, where the final exam involves shouting at a spectral projection of a dragon. The visual storytelling in High Hrothgar reinforces this theme of austere power. The monastery is cold, stone, and empty. The wind howls constantly outside, but inside it is dead silent. The Greybeards move slowly. They don't run. They don't panic about the return of Alduin. They possess a terrifying calmness that comes from looking at time on a geological scale. To them, the current crisis is just another turn of the wheel. There is a moment of stark reality, a reality check, if you will, when you realise that the Greybeards could likely conquer Skyrim in an afternoon if they chose to. Ulfric Stormcloak, who studied with them for a few years, used a fraction of their training to shout the High King into oblivion and start a civil war. Imagine what Ungir could do if he decided to get involved in politics. The fact that they don't is the strongest evidence of their discipline. It's the Superman dilemma, having the power to rule the world and the wisdom to know that you shouldn't. One of the most chilling interactions occurs if you attack the Greybeards. Unlike other NPCs who might cower or fight back with swords, the Greybeards simply turn you into ice. They use the ice form shout, freezing you solid, and then they might just wander off or punch you to death while you're helpless. It's a swift, brutal lesson. Do not mistake their pacifism for harmlessness. The Way of the Voice teaches us that influence doesn't always come from being the loudest person in the room. It comes from conviction. It comes from understanding the nature of the things you're trying to change. As you leave High Hrothgar, having learned the first steps of your destiny, you are caught between two worlds. Behind you is the silence of the mountains, the cold clarity of the Greybeards. Below you is the noise of the war-torn valleys, the messy, bloody politics of mortals. You carry the voice with you now, a weapon that is also a prayer, and as you descend those 7,000 steps, perhaps encountering that troll again, hopefully with a bit more fire this time, you have to decide, will you be a conqueror like Tiber Septim, using the voice to build an empire? Or will you be a guardian like Jurgen Windcaller, holding the storm at bay? The wind whips your cloak around you, the snow crunches underfoot. The lesson of the voice lingers like the ringing in your ears after a thunderclap. Silence is not empty, it is full of answers. But down in the valley, nobody is listening. Down in the valley, brothers are killing brothers over the colour of their tabards. The peace of the mountain is a luxury the lowlands cannot afford. Descending from the rarefied air of High Hrothgar, we plunge straight into the muck and blood of the lowlands. The silence of the Greybeards is replaced by the clashing of steel and the bitter arguments of the civil war. If the mountain taught us about internal balance, the war for Skyrim teaches us about external chaos. Specifically, it forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality of grey morality. In most fantasy epics, the lines are drawn with Sharpie. The good guys wear white and have eagles on their shields. The bad guys wear black spikes and kick puppies. But in Skyrim, the choice between the Imperial Legion and the Stormcloak Rebellion is a messy, tangled knot of politics, religion and racism that leaves most players pausing at the quest prompt, unsure which box to check. Let's break down the West core in-game fact. The civil war is fought between the Empire, which is trying to maintain unity and uphold the White Gold Concordat, a peace treaty with the High Elves, and the Stormcloaks, led by Ulfric, who want independence and the freedom to worship Talos. On the surface, it seems easy. The Empire tried to cut your head off in the intro. Surely they are the villains. Plus, they are banning religion. That sounds bad. So you look at the Stormcloaks. They are fighting for their homeland. They are the underdogs. But then you walk into Windhelm, their capital, and you see the segregated Grey Quarter, where Dark Elves live in squalor, subjected to slurs and suspicion. You hear Ulfric's rhetoric, which often leans heavily into Skyrim belongs to the Nords, a sentiment that doesn't leave much room for anyone else. So you pivot back to the Empire. They are cosmopolitan, organised, and they represent stability. But then you remember they are essentially puppets of the Thalmor, the Nazi-esque High Elves who are dragging people out of their homes in the middle of the night for praying to the wrong god. The Empire is enforcing a treaty that humiliates their own people to buy time for a war they might not even win. This is the brilliance of the writing here. There is no right side. There is only a choice between two flawed ideologies, let's dig into an obscure lore tidbit that changes the texture of this conflict. Many players assume the ban on Talos worship was heavily enforced before the war. However, in-game dialogue from Alva in Riverwood and even Jarl Igmund suggests that the Empire wasn't really enforcing the ban until Ulfric made a big fuss about it. Before the Markarth incident, people worshipped Talos quietly in their homes, and the Empire looked the other way. It was Ulfric's demand for open, legalised worship that forced the Thalmor to step in and forced the Empire to crack down. In a tragic twist of irony, Ulfric's crusade for religious freedom actually led to the immediate persecution of the very people he claimed to protect. He shined a spotlight on a crime the police were trying to ignore. This leads to a fierce community debate. Is Ulfric a hero or a sleeper agent? The Thalmor dossier, Ulfric's Stormcloak found in the Thalmor embassy, lists him as an asset, though uncooperative. It reveals that the Thalmor want the civil war to continue. As long as Nords and Imperials are killing each other, they aren't fighting the Elves. A victory for either side is bad for the Thalmor, but a long, bloody stalemate is perfect. This suggests that by fighting for freedom, the Stormcloaks are actually playing directly into the hands of their worst enemies. Conversely, Imperial supporters argue that a united empire is the only thing standing between humanity and total enslavement by the Dominion. The war teaches us that political choices are rarely about good versus evil. They are about bad versus worse. It's a lesson in pragmatism. Do you support the stability of a failing empire to prevent a greater threat? Or do you support the right to self-determination, even if it comes wrapped in xenophobia and isolationism? The gameplay reflects this grim reality. The quests for both sides are almost identical mirrors. You siege forts, you blackmail stewards, you kill fellow citizens. When you finally take a city, be it Whiterun for the Stormcloaks or Windhelm for the Imperials, the aftermath is depressing. The Jarls are replaced, often by people who are just as flawed or incompetent as their predecessors. The city is damaged, the guards change uniforms, but the fundamental problems of the world, the dragons, the vampires, the poverty, remain untouched. There is a poignant moment if you side with the Imperials and kill Ulfric. He asks to die by your hand, so the Dragonborn makes the kill, adding a legendary weight to his end. But if you side with the Stormcloaks and kill General Tullius, the general's last words are, "You realise this is exactly what they wanted." He dies knowing that his death is a victory for the Thalmor. It's a gut punch that robs you of the satisfaction of victory. And let's not forget the sheer tragedy of Whiterun. Jarl Balgruuf stands out as one of the most reasonable, likeable leaders in the game. He cares about his people and tries to stay neutral, but the war forces him to pick a side. If you join the Stormcloaks, you are forced to besiege his city and depose him. Seeing Balgruuf, a man who gave you your first title and house, sitting in the basement of the Blue Palace in solitude, exiled and bitter, feels like a personal betrayal. It drives home the point that war doesn't just kill soldiers, it destroys good men who try to stay out of it. The grey morality extends to the soldiers on the ground. Listen to the idle chatter in the camps. The Imperial soldiers aren't heartless oppressors. Many are locals who joined up to feed their families or because they believe in the law. The Stormcloaks aren't all racists. Many are farmers whose fathers were dragged off by Thalmor justiciars. They are fighting for their right to exist. This section of the game asks you to stop looking for a hero to save the day and realise that you are the political weight that tips the scale. But tipping the scale doesn't fix the scale. We also see the corrosive effect of the war on the land itself. The forts are ruins. The roads are unsafe. The economy is in shambles. While the Jarls argue in their warm halls, the people of Riverwood and Rorikstead are left undefended against the returning dragons. It reinforces the idea that while leaders play their games of thrones, the common folk pay the price in blood and burnt crops. Ultimately, the Civil War storyline ends, but the tension never really dissipates. Even if you unite Skyrim, the guards will still complain, the defeated Jarls will still plot in exile, and the Thalmor will still be lurking in the shadows, smiling their golden, smug smiles. The lesson here is maturity. It's accepting that sometimes there is no happy ending where everyone holds hands. Sometimes you have to make a choice that will hurt people you like, to save a future you believe in. You have to weigh the cost of freedom against the value of security. And in Skyrim, just like in the real world, that calculation is never clean. It is messy, it is bloody, and it leaves you wondering, long after the quest is marked complete, if you actually did the right thing. As we leave the war rooms and the sieges behind, we must turn our eyes back to the sky. Because while men fight over borders and gods, a much older, darker conversation is happening at the top of the world, a conversation about the nature of the soul itself. We're going back to the mountain to meet a master who isn't a man at all. High above the petty squabbles of the civil war, past the frozen courtyards of High Hrothgar, there lies the very peak of the throat of the world. Here the air is thin enough to make your lungs ache, and the silence is absolute, until it is broken by the beating of wings. We are here to meet Paarthurnax and to discuss perhaps the most profound philosophical question posed by any video game in the last 20 years. Is it better to be born good, or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? This brings us to our core in-game fact. Paarthurnax is the leader of the Greybeards, but he is also a dragon. In fact, he was Alduin's lieutenant during the Dragon War, a creature responsible for unspeakable atrocities against mankind. Yet, he betrayed his brother and taught humans the voice, enabling them to overthrow their dragon overlords. For thousands of years since, he has lived in isolation at the peak of the mountain, meditating to suppress his innate drive to dominate. Meeting him is a shock. You expect a wizened old monk, perhaps a spirit or a god. Instead, a massive, tattered dragon crashes down onto the snow, greets you in a gravelly voice, and immediately starts asking you deep questions about why you are here. He's not a monster to be slain, but a mentor to be understood. Paarthurnax represents the struggle against biological determinism. Dragons in the Elder Scrolls are not just big lizards, they are shards of time, children of Akatosh. Their very nature is to dominate. As Paarthurnax explains, Dov Walan Fa Rel. Dragons were created for domination. The urge to conquer is as natural to them as breathing is to us. For Paarthurnax to sit on a mountain and do nothing is an act of constant, agonizing willpower. Every day is a battle against his own soul. This paints a fascinating picture of goodness. We often think of good people as those who naturally do the right thing, the Captain Americas of the world who never seem tempted to be selfish. But Paarthurnax suggests a different, grittier definition. Virtue is a muscle. It is not a default setting. True morality is having the capacity for monstrous evil and choosing every single second to keep it leashed. Now for the obscure lore tidbit. The name Paarthurnax itself is a compound of 3 dragon words: Par, ambition; Thur, overlord; and Nax, cruelty. His very name is a description of the monster he used to be. Ambition, overlord, cruelty. He doesn't change his name to Fluffy or Peacebringer when he turns good. He keeps the old name, wearing his past sins like a badge of shame, or perhaps a warning label. He acknowledges that cruelty is still part of who he is, he just chooses not to act on it. This leads us directly into the most heated, fierce community debate in the game's history, the Paarthurnax dilemma. Later in the main quest, the Blades, Delphine and Esbern, discover Paarthurnax's identity. They demand you kill him. Their logic is cold and judicial. He committed genocide in the past and justice has no expiration date. Furthermore, they argue that his goodness is a ticking time bomb. What if he slips? What if, after Alduin is gone, the urge to dominate returns? He's too dangerous to be left alive. The fanbase overwhelmingly rejects this. Modders created entirely new questlines just to tell the Blades to shove it. Why? Because players intuitively understand the value of redemption. We see a creature that has spent millennia atoning for its crimes. Killing him feels like punishing someone for being a recovering addict. It feels like a betrayal of the very concept of self-improvement. But the Blades have a point, don't they? If a war criminal hides for 50 years and teaches yoga, is he no longer a war criminal? Does time wash away blood? The game forces you to decide. If you kill him, the Greybeards banish you. If you spare him, the Blades abandon you. There is no middle ground. Paarthurnax's dialogue is riddled with tragic wisdom. He asks, what is better, to be born good, or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? This isn't just a rhetorical question. It's his defense. He is arguing that his goodness is more valuable than a mortal's goodness because he had to fight for his. A human is good because they are weak. A dragon is good despite being strong. This section teaches us about the shadow self. Jungian psychology talks about the shadow, the dark, repressed side of our personality. Most people try to ignore it. Paarthurnax sits on a mountain and stares his shadow in the face every day. He integrates it. He acknowledges, yes, I want to burn the world down, but I won't. The visual setting of the throat of the world reinforces this isolation. It is the only place in the game where the snow never stops. The clouds are below you. You're removed from the world much like Paarthurnax is removed from his kind. It is a lonely existence. It suggests that the path of overcoming one's nature is a solitary one. No one can hold the leash for you. There is also a subtle warning in his story. Paarthurnax mentions that he mediates on the Rotmulag, the words of power. He suggests that by understanding the words, you can change your reality. But he also warns that power is addictive. The Dragonborn, having the soul of a dragon, shares this same thirst for domination. When you shout, you feel that same rush Paarthurnax feels. You are not so different from him. The only difference is that you haven't lived long enough to regret your conquests yet. The tragedy of Paarthurnax is that he can never truly be forgiven by the world below. To the Nords, he's a demon. To the dragons, he's a traitor. He belongs nowhere. His only companions are the silent Greybeards and the wind. Yet, he seems at peace. This lesson resonates because we all have dragons in our nature. Addictions, anger, selfishness, prejudices. We often feel guilty for having these thoughts. Paarthurnax teaches us that having the thought isn't the sin, acting on it is. You're not defined by your worst impulses, you're defined by your ability to say no to them. As you descend the mountain again, leaving the old dragon to his eternal watch, the weight of your own destiny feels different. You aren't just a hero because prophecy said so. You're a hero only if you choose to be, day after day, shout after shout. The biology of a dragon demands fire and death. The spirit of the hero demands restraint. And as we move from the high peaks to the darkest corners of the Brotherhoods, we will see what happens when that restraint is lost entirely. We are trading the clear air of the mountain for the suffocating damp of a sanctuary, where a different kind of family is falling apart. We leave the biting wind of the throat of the world and descend into the humid, mist-choked pine forests of Falkreath. Here, hidden behind a black door that whispers riddles, lies a different kind of sanctuary. If Paarthurnax taught us about the struggle to be good, the Dark Brotherhood teaches us about the seductive comfort of being bad and the catastrophic cost of betrayal. What is the music of life, the door asks. Silence, my brother, you reply. And the stone melts away to reveal a family of murderers. This brings us to our hype. Core in-game fact. The Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim, led by Astrid, is a shadow of its former glory. Unlike the religious cults of previous eras, Astrid's sanctuary operates more like a dysfunctional family of mercenaries. They have abandoned the 5 tenets, the sacred rules that governed the Brotherhood for centuries. There is no listener, no reverence for the Night Mother, and no Sithis. There is only Astrid's word. She calls it protecting the family, but in reality she has turned a spiritual order into a business. At first, it feels refreshing. The sanctuary is cozy. You have a werewolf who tells jokes, a vampire child who's arguably the most terrifying thing in the room, and an orc who just loves books. It feels like a home for outcasts. Astrid plays the role of the protective matriarch perfectly. She gives you your first set of shrouded armour, which, let's be honest, makes you look like a sleek, leather-clad ninja, and welcomes you in. But the rot is already there. It arrives in a wagon with a broken wheel, driven by a jester named Cicero. Cicero carries the coffin of the Night Mother, the unholy matron of the Brotherhood. To Astrid, this is a threat. The Night Mother represents the old ways, the religious fanaticism she worked so hard to purge. If the Night Mother speaks to a new listener, which turns out to be you, Astrid loses her authority. Her family stops being hers. This sparks a fierce community debate. Was Astrid right to fear Cicero? On one hand, Cicero is deeply, profoundly disturbed. He talks to a corpse, dances obsessively, and his voice lines oscillate between high-pitched giggling and guttural threats. He is chaos incarnate. Many players find him unbearable and side with Astrid's pragmatic leadership. On the other hand, lore purists argue that Astrid is a usurper. The Dark Brotherhood is a death cult. Without the Night Mother and the Tenets, they are just common cutthroats in fancy pyjamas. Cicero, for all his madness, is the only one actually doing his job. The tension explodes when Astrid makes the unthinkable choice. In a desperate bid to maintain control, she betrays you, the Dragonborn, her own listener, to the Imperial commander Maro. She offers your life in exchange for the safety of her sanctuary. She tries to cut a deal with the law to save the outlaws. Here lies the obscure law. Tidbit. The ritual Astrid performs at the end of this questline is a perversion of the Black Sacrament. Usually the sacrament requires an effigy made of real body parts, a heart, skull, bones, and flesh, encircled by candles. But when you find Astrid in the burning sanctuary, she has performed the sacrament on herself. She has arranged the nightshade, the candles, and the dagger, but she is the offering, she is the body. It is a horrifying, literal manifestation of her guilt. She is praying to the Night Mother for death, acknowledging that her leadership was the cancer that killed her family. The destruction of the sanctuary is one of the most intense sequences in the game. The safe space you've grown accustomed to is turned into an inferno. The Penitus Oculatus agents are swarming in. You see your family dying. Arnbjorn the werewolf is riddled with arrows in his wolf form. Gabriella is dead on a ledge. Festus Crex is pinned to a tree outside by a dozen arrows, looking like a grim pincushion. The explicit gore here serves a purpose. It shows the absolute failure of Astrid's philosophy. You cannot bargain with the world when your trade is death. Astrid's fall teaches us that toxic protectiveness is just as dangerous as neglect. By trying to shield her family from the old ways, she left them vulnerable to the new world. She refused to accept that the Brotherhood was bigger than her. She refused to bend, so she broke. And let's talk about that scene in the cabin, the abandoned shack where you first meet her. She kidnaps you and forces you to kill one of 3 bound captives to leave. It's a psychological game, but the real boss move is that you can just turn around and kill Astrid right there. If you do, the entire questline vanishes. You destroy the Brotherhood before it begins. Most players don't do this because they want the loot and the quests, but the option exists. It highlights her arrogance. She assumed she was the predator in the room, forgetting she was locking herself in with a dragon in human skin. The tragedy of Astrid is that she genuinely loved her family. Her last words to you, as she lies burned and dying, are a request to kill her with the blade of woe. "Thank you," she rasps. It's a moment of clarity. She realizes too late that true leadership sometimes means stepping aside. She tried to strangle the tradition to save the organization, but she only succeeded in strangling the organization. The Dark Brotherhood questline is a masterclass in the inevitable betrayal. It reminds us that organizations built on murder rarely have happy retirement parties. But deeper than that, it warns against the ego of leadership. Astrid thought she knew better than centuries of tradition. She thought she could outsmart the Night Mother, outmaneuver the Empire and control the Dragonborn. As you step out of the smouldering ruins of the sanctuary, clutching the blade of woe, you are the last remnant of the family. You are the listener now. The jester Cicero, if you spared him, is dancing with glee, and the spectral assassins are ready to serve. The family survives, but only because it was purged of the leader who tried to own it. The lesson is stark. Tradition exists for a reason, and while it must sometimes be challenged, it cannot simply be ignored for the sake of ego. Astrid wanted a family of killers who answered only to her. She got a graveyard instead. We leave the smell of burnt flesh and the whispers of the Night Mother behind us now, but as we move from the shadows of the assassins to the shadows of the thieves, we find that not all curses are self-inflicted. Sometimes, bad luck isn't just a metaphor, it's a divine punishment. We are heading to the Ratway, where honour among thieves is a myth and luck is a commodity that has been stolen. From the charred remains of the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary, we travel east toward the autumn-coloured forests of the Rift. The air here smells of decaying leaves, lake water, and desperation. We are entering Riften, a city that feels like it's slowly sliding into the lake it's built upon, and deep beneath its streets, in the maze of tunnels known as the Ratway, the Thieves' Guild is learning a hard lesson. Luck is not a random occurrence, it is a transaction. When you first meet the guild, they are pathetic. Let's be honest, they are essentially shaking down shopkeepers for lunch money. Brynjolf, their second-in-command, is reduced to selling Fulmer blood elixir in the market square just to create a distraction. They are broke, their members are getting arrested, and their reputation is in the gutter. They blame it on a run of bad luck that has lasted for decades. But as we peel back the layers of the questline, we discover our core in-game fact. This isn't just a slump. The guild is literally cursed. The former guildmaster, Mercer Frey, violated the most sacred oath of their order. He desecrated the Twilight Sepulchre, the temple of the Daedric Prince Nocturnal, and stole the skeleton key. In doing so, he cut off the guild's connection to the Ebonmere, the conduit of luck that flows from Nocturnal's realm. The reason every heist goes wrong, the reason guards always seem to turn the corner at the exact wrong moment, is because the goddess of shadows has turned her back on them. This changes the entire context of the thief archetype. Usually we think of thieves as roguish individuals who rely on skill and chance. But in Skyrim, thievery is a metaphysical ecosystem. You cannot steal from the world if you're stealing from the patron of thieves. It's like trying to be a sailor while insulting the ocean. Mercer Frey is a fascinating villain because he represents the ultimate cynicism. He doesn't believe in the curse. He thinks luck is just a word for preparation and skill. He uses the skeleton key not just to open doors, but to unlock his own potential, making him effectively invisible and terrifyingly skilled in combat. He is the embodiment of the self-made man who thinks he owes nothing to anyone. And for a while, it works. He lives in a mansion, steals the guild blind, and gets away with murder. But here is where the obscure lore tidbit regarding the skeleton key comes into play. Most players see the key as an unbreakable lockpick, a handy tool for lazy adventurers who hate the lockpicking minigame. However, in the deeper lore, the key is an artifact of cosmic significance. It doesn't just open physical locks, it can unlock metaphysical barriers. It can unlock the hidden potential in a person's mind, unlock passages between dimensions, or unlock the restrictions of reality itself. Mercer was using it to unlock situations that should have been impossible to escape. He was hacking the reality of the game, but the lore also states that the key ultimately belongs to the Twilight Sepulchre, and keeping it causes the lock of reality to decay. Mercer's personal power was coming at the cost of the guild's very existence. To fix this, you have to do something that sparks a massive community debate. You have to sell your soul. To defeat Mercer and return the key, you, Carlia, and Brynjolf must become nightingales. You swear an oath to Nocturnal that, in life and in death, you will serve as a guardian of the Twilight Sepulchre. Players have argued about this for years. Is it a bad deal? You are the Dragonborn. Your soul belongs to Akatosh, or maybe Hircine if you're a werewolf, or Molag Bal if you're a vampire. Can you really pledge your eternal soul to a Daedric prince just to finish a questline and get some cool armour? The debate touches on the theological mess of the Dragonborn's afterlife. Some fans argue that Akatosh has dibs on your soul regardless of what you say to Nocturnal. Others believe that Nocturnal, being one of the oldest and most powerful princes, the Urdra, has a claim that supersedes even the divines. By agreeing to the deal, are you condemning yourself to an eternity of ghost duty in a damp cave? Narratively, the game treats this transaction with grave seriousness. The initiation ritual is somber. You stand on the ancient glyphs, wear the armour that looks like it was woven from midnight shadows, and accept the terms. Walk with the shadows, Nocturnal commands. It's the antithesis of the clean slate we started with. Now, your slate is written on in permanent ink. You have an obligation. But let's look at the result. Once the oath is sworn and the key is returned, the luck returns. The guild chests fill up with gold, the ragged flagon gets cleaned up, you become the guild master. The lesson here is that success in this world requires submission to a higher order. You cannot be a lone wolf forever. Even the King of Thieves must bow to the Queen of Shadows. The final confrontation with Mercer Frey takes place in a flooding Dwemer ruin, focused on the massive statue of the Snow Elf. Falmer eyes glowing with greed. It's a poetic end. Mercer, who tried to steal everything, is drowned by the weight of the water and his own hubris. He dies alone, betrayed by the very luck he thought he had mastered. There is a gritty reality check in this questline too. Being a nightingale doesn't make you a god, it just tilts the odds in your favour. You still have to pick the pockets, you still have to sneak past the guards. Nocturnal doesn't do the work for you. She just ensures that if you do the work, the universe won't unfairly punish you. It's the difference between gambling at a rigged table and gambling at a fair one. The aesthetic of the Twilight Sepulchre deserves a mention. It is one of the most beautiful and alien locations in the game. The Ebonmere is a pool of swirling darkness that feels like looking into the night sky. The pilgrim's path you walk to reach it is filled with shadows that hurt you if you step into the light. A brilliant inversion of the usual stay in the light mechanics. It reinforces the idea that you're now a creature of the dark. You find comfort where others find fear. As you walk away from the sepulchre, leaving the key behind, you might feel a pang of regret. That key was really useful. But that's the test. Are you willing to give up ultimate personal power for the good of your community? Mercer failed that test. The Dragonborn passes it. The Thieves' Guild story is a story about the restoration of balance. It teaches us that luck isn't magic. It's the byproduct of respecting the rules of the game. When you cheat the system, like Mercer did, you might win for a while, but the house always wins in the end. By restoring the key, you aren't just fixing a lock, you're restoring the flow of fate for the entire criminal underworld of Skyrim. And speaking of underground fates and civilizations that thought they could outsmart the gods, our next step takes us deeper than the sewers. We're going to examine the greatest mystery in Elder Scrolls lore. We are looking for the race that vanished in a heartbeat, leaving behind only brass pipes and ticking clocks. The thieves tried to steal luck. The Dwemer tried to steal divinity. We leave the dank, rat-infested sewers of Riften, but we are not heading up toward the sun. Instead, we're going deeper, much deeper. We are descending past the stone roots of the mountains, past the natural caverns where trolls sleep, into the alien brass bowels of the earth. We are entering the realm of the Dwemer, the Deep Elves, where the lesson isn't about luck or morality, it is about the terrifying fragility of existence itself. If the Thieves' Guild taught us that you cannot cheat the gods, the Dwemer teach us what happens when you try to ignore them entirely and build your own reality. Walking into a Dwemer ruin, be it Alfdand, Mzulft or Relpthar, is a jarring experience. One moment you're in a fantasy Viking simulator, and the next you're in a steampunk horror movie. The walls are smooth metal. Pipes hiss with geothermal steam. Massive gears turn silently, driven by an energy source that has lasted for thousands of years without maintenance, and it is completely, utterly empty of its creators. This brings us to our core in-game fact. The Dwemer didn't die out in a war. They didn't succumb to a plague. They simply vanished. All of them. In an instant. In the year 1E 700, during the Battle of Red Mountain, the entire race disappeared from the face of Nirn, leaving behind their dinner plates, their weapons, and their machines. In Skyrim, you wander through their cities, and the lights are still on. The automatons, spiders, spheres, and the terrifying centurions are still patrolling, following patrol routes laid down 4,000 years ago. They're guarding a ghost town. There is a specific kind of dread in these ruins. You find stone beds that look uncomfortable. You find forks and spoons made of non-rusting metal. You see the evidence of a civilization that was light years ahead of everyone else. While the Nords were banging rocks together, the Dwemer were building airships and tonal resonators. But their genius was cold, it was mathematical. The Dwemer were atheists in a world where gods demonstrably exist. Think about the arrogance of that. In Tamriel, you can literally talk to a Daedric prince. You can see the shrines of the divines work miracles. But the Dwemer looked at the gods and said, "We are not impressed." They viewed the gods not as deities to be worshipped, but as powerful beings to be studied, categorized, and eventually surpassed. They didn't want to serve heaven, they wanted to mechanize it. This hubris is best exemplified by the Falmer. We will touch on the Betrayed later in our journey, but for now look at them as a product of Dwemer engineering. When the Snow Elves fled to the Dwemer for protection, the Deep Elves blinded them and enslaved them, twisting them into monsters. Why? Because they could. Because to the Dwemer, logic dictated that resources, even living ones, should be utilized. It is a chilling reminder that high intelligence does not equal high morality. But what actually happened to them? This leads us to the Yore obscure lore. Tidbit. The disappearance wasn't an accident. It was a botched experiment in divinity. The Dwemer chief tonal architect, Paarthurnax, had constructed a massive brass golem called the Numidium. It was designed to be an artificial god, powered by the heart of Lorcan. the literal heart of the creator deity, which the Dwemer found buried beneath Red Mountain. Paarthurnax used 3 tools, Keening, Sunder and Wraithguard, to manipulate the heart's tones. He wasn't just doing magic, he was performing tonal architecture. He was editing the source code of reality. During the battle, with the Kima, ancestors of the Dark Elves, at the gates, Paarthurnax struck the heart. He attempted to transcend the mortal plane, to fuse his entire race into the skin of this brass god, granting them immortality and collective divinity. And this sparks the metaphysical community debate that keeps lore scholars awake at night. Did they succeed, or did they zero-sum? The concept of zero-summing in Elder Scrolls lore is terrifying. The universe of the Elder Scrolls is essentially a dream of a sleeping entity known as the Godhead. To achieve Chim, Royal Highness Enlightenment, you must realise you are a figment of a dream, but have the ego to assert I exist anyway. If you realise you are a dream but lack the ego to maintain your individuality, logic dictates that you do not exist. You plus not you. 0. You vanish. You are erased from the dream. Many fans believe the Dwemer, a race obsessed with logic and the collective, couldn't handle the revelation. When Paarthurnax struck the heart, he showed them the sheet music of the universe. They saw that they weren't real, and because they were so logical, they accepted the premise and simply ceased to be. They reasoned themselves out of existence. Others argue they did become the skin of the Numidium, that they are trapped as a collective soul inside a brass monster that screams no at the universe. In this theory, they are not dead, but fused into a hellish singular consciousness that denies reality. Walking through the ruins of Blackreach or the Tower of Mzark, you can feel this world refusal. The architecture is aggressive. It imposes straight lines on a chaotic world. The puzzles you solve, like the Oculori, involve aligning lenses to refract light and sound. It's all about control. The Dwemer tried to control the unknowable, and the unknowable swallowed them whole. Let's talk about the Centurions for a moment. These massive steam-venting constructs are the ultimate reality check for a cocky adventurer. You open a door, and suddenly a 10-foot-tall brass giant is charging you, venting scalding steam that cooks you in your armour. They have no soul, no fear, and no mercy. They are just executing a program. There is something profoundly disturbing about being killed by a machine that doesn't even know you're there. It's not personal, it's just maintenance. The gore in these ruins is often old, but no less grim. You find the skeletons of adventurers who died trying to loot the place, crushed by traps or skewered by spinning blades. The Dwemer traps are cruel. Spinning guillotines, floor spikes, flamethrowers. They designed their cities to be efficient, even in how they disposed of unwanted guests. But the most haunting presence in the ruins isn't the machines, it's the ghosts. In Morrowind, you could meet the last living Dwemer, Yagrum Bagan, a bloated, diseased spider centaur who survived because he was in another dimension when the disappearance happened. He spends his eternity looking for his people, but he finds nothing. In Skyrim, we only find the spectres, hollow, blue ghosts of Dwemer soldiers that patrol the ruins. Are they souls? Or are they just magical echoes, recordings playing on a loop? The fact that they don't speak, only attack, suggests the latter. They are just another machine left running. The lesson of the Deep Elves is a warning against the idolatry of logic. We live in a world that prizes data, efficiency, and technological advancement. The Dwemer were the ultimate technocrats. They solved hunger, they solved energy, they solved war. But in their quest for the ultimate answer, they forgot the question. They tried to dissect God to see how he worked, and the scalpel slipped. As you stand in the massive underground cavern of Blackreach, which we will explore more fully later, surrounded by glowing mushrooms and the silent hum of the pipes, you realise that the Dwemer achieved the ultimate irony. They wanted to be eternal. And they are. Their cities will stand forever. Their machines will never stop. But they are gone. They built a perfect cage and then dissolved into the air, leaving the door locked from the inside. It is a sombre walk back to the surface. The hiss of the steam follows you. You emerge into the snow, and for the first time, the biting cold feels welcoming. It feels alive. The chaos of the wolves and the bandits and the dragons feels preferable to the cold, dead perfection of the brass tunnels. We have seen what happens when a race rejects its nature. Now, let us turn to those who are forced to embrace a nature they never asked for. We are leaving the machines behind and heading to the mead hall of Jorvaska, where the air smells of wet fur and wet dogs, and where the beast within is not a metaphor but a curse waiting to break the skin. From the cold, lifeless brass of the Dwemer ruins, we retreat to something much warmer, louder, and hairier. We are heading to the centre of Whiterun, to the overturned longship that serves as the oldest mead hall in the city, Jorvaska. Here, the fire is always roaring, the mead flows like water, and the companions sing songs of glory. But beneath the floorboards of this warrior's paradise, there is a secret that smells of wet dog and dried blood. We are here to talk about the beast within and the terrible price of raw power. When you first join the companions, it feels like a standard fantasy trope. They are mercenaries with honour, the modern descendants of Ysgramor and his 500 companions. They value strength, loyalty, and a good brawl. It's the jock table of the Skyrim cafeteria. You start by running errands, beating up local brawlers, and proving you aren't completely incompetent. It feels grounded. It feels human. But then comes the revelation. Skjor and Ayla invite you to the Underforge, a hidden cave beneath the Skyforge. The air here is heavy and thick, and there you see a werewolf. Not a monster attacking you, but a brother in arms. This leads us to our core in-game fact. The inner circle of the companions, known simply as the Circle, are all lycanthropes. They carry the beast blood, a gift from the Daedric Prince Hircin. This allows them to transform into hulking bipedal wolves, granting them immense strength and speed. But it comes with a catch. Upon death, a werewolf does not go to Sovngarde, the Nordic heaven of mead and endless wrestling matches. Instead, their soul is claimed by Hircin for his hunting grounds, an eternal realm of predator and prey. This is the central tragedy of Kodlak Whitemane, the harbinger of the companions. Kodlak is one of the most respected figures in Skyrim. He is wise, measured, and seemingly at peace. But in the quiet moments of conversation in his quarters, he reveals his deep spiritual terror. He is an old man who has lived by the sword, and he wants to die with honour and join Ysgramor in Sovngarde. But he knows that because of the blood in his veins, the gates of Sovngarde are barred to him. He is destined to spend eternity as Hircin's hound. Kodlak's struggle introduces a powerful lesson. Power often comes with a mortgage on your soul. The beast blood makes the companions the greatest warriors in Skyrim. It makes them feared, it makes them unstoppable, but it robs them of their ultimate reward. It asks the question, is it worth winning every battle in life if you lose the war for your afterlife? The dichotomy creates a massive community debate. Is lycanthropy a curse or a blessing? Ayla the Huntress embraces it. To her, the power to hunt, to feel the wind in her fur, to be an apex predator, is the ultimate freedom. She mocks the idea of a cure. Many players agree with her. Being a werewolf in-game is a blast. You can ragdoll giants, sprint faster than horses, and eat bandits to regain health. It's a power fantasy. But then you look at the game mechanics. When you are a werewolf, you lose the well-rested bonus. You can never truly sleep peacefully. Your nights are restless, haunted by the call of the moon. It's a subtle piece of storytelling that reinforces Kodlak's view. The beast won't let you rest. Let's dig into a key, obscure lore tidbit. Regarding the origin of this specific curse, the companions weren't always werewolves. The affliction is relatively recent in their long history. It began with a harbinger named Taerfig, who lived centuries ago. Taerfig made a pact with the witches of Glenmaril because the companions were losing their edge. He traded the eternity of his successors for temporary power in the mortal realm. It wasn't a noble sacrifice, it was a shortcut. And like the deal with Clavicus Vile we might discuss later, or the shortcuts of the Dwemer, it backfired. The current generation is paying the debt for an ancestor's insecurity. The conflict escalates with the Silver Hand, a group of werewolf hunters. At first glance, they seem like generic bandits with silver swords. But if you look closely at their headquarters, the imagery is gruesome. They aren't just killing werewolves, they are torturing them. You find cages, torture racks, and yes, the skinned heads of werewolves mounted on spikes. It's a brutal reality check. To the Silver Hand, you are the monster. You are the abomination. And honestly, When you're tearing a guard's throat out in the middle of Whiterun because you accidentally pressed the transform button, it's hard to argue with them. The gore in the Companion's questline is surprisingly high. The transformation sequence itself is violent. The sound design is filled with the cracking of bones and the tearing of flesh. It's not a magical girl transformation, it's a body horror event. And when the Silver Hand attacks Jorvaskr, the cost becomes physical. Kodlak is killed. You find his body in the main hall, slumped over, dead before he could be cured. This is the low point of the arc. The wise old man died with the curse still in his veins. By all laws of the law, he is damned. He belongs to Hircine now, but the Dragonborn is a creature who breaks rules. The final act of this story takes us to Ysgramor's tomb to rectify this spiritual wrong. You have to kill the Glenmoril witches, horrific hag-ravens who dwell in a cave filled with spiderwebs and darkness, and bring their heads to the tomb. The ritual in the tomb is a masterpiece of metaphorical storytelling made literal. You throw the witch's head into the fire. Kodlak's spirit emerges, and so does his beast spirit, a spectral red wolf. To save him, you have to fight the wolf. You have to beat the beast out of him. Think about the symbolism here. Kodlak spent his whole life fighting the urge to kill, the urge to dominate, the urge to be an animal. In death, that internal struggle is externalized. You, his student, help him achieve the victory he couldn't achieve alone. When the wolf spirit dies, Kodlak is finally truly free. "The rot leaves my mind," he says. He fades away, bound for Sovngarde. This leaves you with a choice. You can cure yourself, or you can remain a werewolf. The game doesn't judge you, but after seeing Kodlak's relief, keeping the blood feels heavy. It feels like you missed the point. The lesson of the Companions is about taming the beast. We all have a side of us that is primal, angry, and hungry. We have impulses that promise us power or satisfaction in the short term, whether that's rage, greed, or lust. Embracing those impulses can make us feel strong, like Ayla. But if we let them run the show, they eat us from the inside out. They rob us of our peace, they rob us of our rest. Kodlak teaches us that it is never too late to change your destiny. Even after death, with the help of true friends, or a demigod protagonist, redemption is possible. He teaches that true strength isn't about how hard you can hit, or how sharp your claws are. It's about the discipline to control your own nature. The atmosphere of Ysgramor's tomb reinforces this. It is filled with the ghosts of the original Companions. They test you, not to kill you, but to see if you are worthy. It's a celebration of Nordic history. By cleansing the beast blood, you are restoring the honour of the faction. You are bringing them back to their roots, before Terfig made his bad deal. As you step out of the tomb, the air is clear. You might still be a werewolf if you chose not to cure yourself, but the weight of the secret is gone. The circle knows the truth. The curse is now a choice. And as we leave the Brotherhood of Warriors, we must prepare for a different kind of madness. We are going to trade the straightforward violence of the wolf for the twisted, nonsensical logic of a mad god. We've dealt with biological curses. Now we have to deal with the curse of the mind. Put on your fancy clothes and maybe bring some cheese because we are heading to the Blue Palace, where a vacation to the mind of a dead emperor awaits. Leaving the ancient solemn earth of Ysgramor's tomb, we shake the grave dust from our boots and head west, toward the stone arch of solitude. We are trading the honour of the wolf for the whimsy of the butterfly, but be warned, the butterflies here eat people. We are about to step into the mind of a dead emperor to have tea with the Daedric Prince of Madness, Sheogorath. And if you thought the politics of the Civil War were messy, wait until you see the politics of a mind that has completely snapped. Our destination is the Blue Palace, the seat of High King Torrig, Rest in Peace, and Jarl Elisif. In the dusty, cobweb-choked hallways of the Pelagius Wing, forbidden to the public, we find our entry point. This wing is a haunted house of bad memories. It's where the mad Emperor Pelagius Septim III once roamed, talking to potted plants and outlawing death. It smells of stale air and neglected history. You're looking for a master, but instead of a grey-bearded monk, you find a hip bone, and then, with a snap of reality's elastic band, you're gone. You're no longer in Skyrim. You're sitting at a banquet table in a misty, surreal clearing, wearing fine clothes that definitely aren't yours. Sitting opposite you is a man in a purple suit with white eyes and a Scottish accent that drips with manic delight. This brings us to our rare, core in-game fact. This is Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. He's holding a tea party inside the mind of the long-dead Emperor Pelagius. He's arguably one of the most dangerous entities in the Orbis, yet he greets you like an old friend who just showed up with pizza. Cheese for everyone, he declares. Or perhaps, scratch that, cheese for no one. With Sheogorath, the menu is subject to change based on his mood, and his mood changes every nanosecond. The lesson here is about the seductive danger of the shortcut. Madness, in the Elder Scrolls universe, is often portrayed not just as an illness, but as a refuge. Pelagius couldn't handle the pressure of ruling. He couldn't handle his insecurities, his paranoia, or his childhood trauma. So, he broke. He took the shortcut. He retreated into a world where logic didn't apply because the real world was too painful to navigate. Sheogorath is the patron saint of checking out. The quest, the Mind of Madness, forces you to act as a therapist. This is one of the few quests in the game where your sword is useless. You're given the Wobberjack, a staff with a face carved into it that looks like it's screaming or yawning, it's hard to tell. You don't kill enemies, you fix Pelagius's nightmares. You see Pelagius suffering from night terrors. You see him being bullied by his own anger, represented by a tiny man beating up a giant man. You see his paranoia watching a gladiator match. To solve these puzzles, you have to use the Wobberjack to change the context. You turn the terror into a goat. You grow the tiny Pelagius until he is big enough to squash his anger. It's a surreal, bizarre sequence, but the metaphor is surprisingly poignant. You're healing a broken mind by forcing it to confront its demons, rather than hiding from them. Sheogorath watches this with amusement, treating the therapy session like a spectator sport. To him, your struggle to make sense of the chaos is the funniest joke in the world. Now, let's drop the obscure lore tidbit that completely recontextualizes who you are talking to. Listen closely to Sheogorath's dialogue. He mentions that he was there for that whole sordid affair regarding the Oblivion Crisis. He mentions Martin Septim turning into a dragon god. He mentions butterflies, a fox, and a severed head. These aren't random ravings. This fuels the massive community debate and widely accepted theory. This Sheogorath is actually the hero of Kvatch, the player character from the Elder Scrolls Chaos Oblivion. In the Shivering Isles, expansion for Oblivion, the protagonist undergoes a process called mantling. The lore concept is walk like them until they must walk like you. The hero of Kvatch defeated the original Sheogorath, technically Jiggalag, and took his place. Over the centuries, the personality of the mortal hero was slowly eroded, overwritten by the cosmic role of the mad god. So, when Sheogorath looks at you, the Dragonborn, and smiles, it is the smile of a former protagonist looking at the current protagonist. It's a passing of the torch from one world-saving hero to another, except the first hero has completely lost his mind. This adds a layer of tragic horror to the encounter. Is this your fate? Is the reward for saving the world just a slow descent into madness and divinity? The hero of Kvatch saved Tamriel, closed the Oblivion gates, and defeated Umaril the Unfeathered, only to end up sitting at a table in a dead man's head, arguing with himself about cheese. It suggests that interacting with these cosmic forces inevitably breaks you. You cannot bargain with the Daedra without losing a piece of your humanity. The bargain is central to Sheogorath's interactions. Characters who deal with him, like Dervanin, the priest trying to bring him back, or Septimus Signus, whom we will meet later, always think they can skim a little knowledge or power off the top without paying the price. But Sheogorath's gifts are ironic. Take the Wobberjack, the reward for this quest. It is the ultimate manifestation of the shortcut lesson. In gameplay, it's a gamble. You point it at a dragon priest and maybe it turns him into a sweet roll, instant victory. Or maybe it heals him completely. Or maybe it turns him into a Dremora lord who cuts your head off. Using the Wobberjack is admitting that you don't want to rely on your skill. You want to rely on chaos. You're tossing a coin and hoping the universe likes you today. The visual design of the quest, the misty void, the floating furniture, contrasts sharply with the heavy, grounded aesthetic of Skyrim. It feels like a glitch in the Matrix, and that's what Sheogorath represents. The glitch. The moment where the rules of physics and society stop working. Let's be honest, we've all had moments in Skyrim where the physics engine breaks, a mammoth falls from the sky, or a giant sends us into orbit. In a way, Sheogorath is the patron saint of Bethesda bugs. He is the in-universe explanation for why the world sometimes just doesn't make sense. But digging deeper into the shortcut theme, consider Pelagius himself. He is a warning. He had all the power in the world, Emperor of Tamriel, but he lacked the internal fortitude to wield it. He let his mind drift. The lesson is that you cannot outsource your sanity. You cannot bargain for mental peace. You have to do the work. The Dragonborn succeeds in the mind of Pelagius not because they are crazy, but because they apply logic to the madness. You solve the puzzles. You impose order on the chaos. As the tea party concludes, Sheogorath agrees to return to the Shivering Isles, leaving you with his staff and a pat on the head. Do you mind? I'm busy doing the fish stick. It's a very delicate state of mind. You're teleported back to the dusty hallway in the Blue Palace. The transition is jarring. 1 minute, vivid colours and tea, the next, grey stone and cobwebs. You're left standing there, holding a staff that turns people into chickens, wondering if any of it actually happened. The bargaining with madness lesson concludes with a realisation. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and there is certainly no such thing as free cheese. If you try to take a shortcut through the mind of a mad god, you might get power, but you will leave with scars that don't show on the outside. The Wobberjack is fun, sure. It's hilarious to turn a bandit into a pile of gold, but every time you use it you are admitting that you'd rather roll the dice than swing the sword. You're flirting with the same chaos that consumed the hero of Kvatch. And speaking of people who flirt with dangerous knowledge and lose their minds, our next destination takes us to the absolute edge of the world. We're going north, past the College of Winterhold, out onto the ice floes where the sea freezes into jagged shards. We are looking for an old man who thinks he has found a way to cheat the gods by reading the Elder Scrolls themselves. We've dealt with the madness of emotion. Now we must deal with the madness of intellect. From the tea-stained psychedelic gardens of the Mad God, we travel to a place where the madness is cold, sharp, and smells of salt water. We are heading to the absolute northern limit of Skyrim, past the College of Winterhold, out onto the treacherous ice sheets of the Ghost Sea. Here, in a small, hollowed-out iceberg that serves as a tomb for a man's sanity, lives Septimus Signus. If Sheogorath taught us that emotional fragility can lead to madness, Septimus Signus teaches us that the intellect can be just as dangerous. This is the lesson of the dangerous thirst for knowledge, the warning that some books are not meant to be read, and some boxes are not meant to be opened. Finding Septimus requires you to walk literally off the map. You trudge through the snow, fighting off hawkers and the occasional snowy saber-cat, until you find a small boat and a trapdoor in the ice. This isolation is the first red flag. Septimus was once a brilliant scholar at the College of Winterhold, a master of Elder Scroll studies. Now, he lives in a damp cave surrounded by Dwemer junk, pacing in circles and muttering about the sphere and the screws. This brings us to our core in-game fact. Septimus is obsessed with opening a massive Dwemer lockbox found in his cave. He believes that inside lies the heart of a god, referencing the heart of Lorcan, the same artifact the Dwemer tried to manipulate. He is convinced that by opening it, he will achieve the apotheosis the dwarves failed to grasp. To do this, he sends you on a quest, discerning the transmundane, which involves venturing into Blackreach to transcribe a lexicon from an Elder Scroll. The interaction with Septimus is tragic. He speaks in riddles. When the top level was built, no more could be placed. It was, and it was not. He is a man whose hard drive has been fragmented. He has downloaded too much data, and his operating system has crashed. Yet, despite his erratic behaviour, he is functional enough to give you one of the most complex quests in the game. It suggests that high intelligence often walks hand in hand with total incoherence. But Septimus is not working alone. As you leave his outpost, the air darkens, and a writhing mass of tentacles and eyeballs blocks your path. This is Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of Knowledge and Fate. He calls himself the Gardener of Men. He reveals that Septimus is merely a tool, a disposable key he has been turning for years. Here is the obscure lore tidbit. The quest requires you to harvest the blood of the Mer, Elves, High Elf, Wood Elf, Dark Elf, Orc, Orsimer, and Fulmer. This is a gruesome task. You're essentially collecting genetic samples to trick the Dwemer lock into thinking a Dwemer is opening it. Why? Because the Dwemer blood is lost, but since all elves share a common ancestor, the Aldmer, a mixture of their blood can approximate the tonal resonance of the Dwemer. Septimus is hacking a biological lock with a cocktail of DNA. It's a terrifyingly scientific approach to magic, blending eugenics with archaeology. This leads to a chilling realization about the player's role. You aren't the hero here, you are the hitman. You are the one going out and killing innocent elves, or bandits, if you have a conscience, to harvest their blood. You are feeding Septimus's addiction. The relationship between Septimus and Hermaeus Mora sparks a community debate. Is Hermaeus Mora evil, or just immoral? He doesn't seem to hate humanity. He doesn't want to destroy the world like Mehrunes Dagon or enslave it like Molag Bal. He just wants to know things. He hoards knowledge like a dragon hoards gold. Fans argue that he is the most Lovecraftian of the princes because he represents the indifference of the cosmos. To him, Septimus is not a person, he is a bookmark. When you finish reading a page, you move the bookmark. That isn't cruelty, it's just utility. However, the counter-argument is that Mora actively tempts mortals into self-destruction. He knows the knowledge will break them, and he gives it to them anyway. He is the dealer selling the drug, fully aware of the overdose rate. When you finally return with the blood, Septimus mixes it into a gruesome injection and opens the lockbox. The massive Dwemer doors hiss and slide open. Septimus runs inside expecting godhood. He expects to see the heart of Lorcan. Instead, he finds a book, the Ogma Infinium, and then he disintegrates. It is one of the most sudden deaths in the game. He cries out, I am, and then flashes into a pile of ash. Hermaeus Mora appears and casually dismisses him. He has served his purpose. Septimus didn't achieve divinity. He achieved zero sum in the most pathetic way possible. He was consumed by the very thing he sought. The lesson here is profound. Knowledge without wisdom is a death sentence. Septimus spent his life studying the Elder Scrolls, artifacts that drive moth priests blind just by looking at them. He pushed his mind beyond the limits of mortal comprehension. He thought he could understand the infinite, but the infinite just used him as a battery and discarded him. The reward for this quest, the Ogma Infinium, allows you to boost your skills significantly. It's a powerful item, but holding it feels dirty. You are holding the thing that killed Septimus. You are holding a book bound in the skin of other races, according to lore. It serves as a physical reminder that power in Skyrim is rarely clean. It is harvested from the madness of old men and the blood of elves. Visually, the outpost reflects Septimus's mind. It is cluttered, cold, and unstable. The Dwemer machine takes up 90% of the living space, pushing Septimus into the corners. The machine is the protagonist of his life. He is just the maintenance guy. It's a metaphor for obsession. When you let a single goal dominate your life, you lose your space, you lose your comfort, you eventually lose yourself. There is also a subtle horror in the fact that the lockbox was empty of what he expected. The heart of a god wasn't there. It was just a book written by a Daedra. It implies that Septimus wasted his life chasing a lie. Or perhaps, to Hermaeus Mora, the book is the heart of a god. To a being of pure knowledge, information is the only divinity that matters. Septimus was looking for a battery. Mora gave him a manual. The mismatch in expectations was fatal. Let's take a moment to appreciate the voice acting of Septimus. The frantic pace, the sudden pauses, the way he emphasizes the wrong words. The scrolling. He sounds like a conspiracy theorist who has connected all the dots but drawn a picture of a nightmare. It's a performance that makes you pity him, even as he asks you to go commit a hate crime for a blood sample. The dangerous thirst lesson warns us against the I can handle it mentality. Septimus thought he was smart enough to outwit a Daedric prince. He thought he was special. But in the eyes of the Abyss, nobody is special. Everybody is just data waiting to be processed. As you leave the cave, stepping over the pile of ash that used to be a brilliant scholar, you are left with the book and the chilly breeze of the Ghost Sea. The tentacled mass of Hermaeus Mora sinks back into the water, waiting for the next scholar, the next new favourite. You survived because you were the errand boy, not the mastermind. Sometimes being the one who fetches the coffee, or the blood, is safer than being the CEO. We leave the ice behind now. We have seen what the thirst for knowledge does to a hermit. But what happens when that thirst is given political power? What happens when the arrogance of a mage is backed by an entire organization? We are heading back to civilization, to the College of Winterhold, to meet a high elf who thinks he can control the power that unmade the world. We leave the lonely, blood-stained ice of Septimus Cygnus's outpost, but we don't travel far. We just head back up the coast, toward the crumbling bridge and the soaring stone spires of the College of Winterhold. If Septimus showed us the danger of obsession in isolation, the college shows us the catastrophe of arrogance in a crowded room. We're here to talk about Ancano, the Eye of Magnus, and the explosive lesson that unearned power acts like radiation. It cooks the person holding it long before it hurts anyone else. The College of Winterhold is a place that feels like it's holding its breath. Half of it fell into the sea during the Great Collapse years ago, and the locals in Winterhold hate the mages with a passion usually reserved for tax collectors. Into this tense atmosphere walks the Dragonborn, ready to learn how to cast a ward for 30 seconds and then immediately become the Archmage. But standing in your way is Ancano. This brings us to our core in-game fact. Ancano is a Thalmor agent, an advisor sent to the college to ensure the Empire's interests, read the Dominion's interests, are being upheld. He is the personification of smugness. He interrupts lectures, sneers at the Archmage Savos Aran, and treats you like a dull child. When the college discovers the Eye of Magnus, a massive swirling sphere of magical energy found in the ruins of Sarthal, Ancano doesn't see a scientific discovery, he sees a weapon. The Eye of Magnus is a visual masterpiece. It hovers in the Hall of the Elements, rotating and humming with a sound that vibrates in your subwoofer. It is beautiful, alien, and clearly dangerous. The mages, led by Tolfdir, want to study it cautiously. Ancano, however, waits for his moment. While you're off fetching the Staff of Magnus, the only tool capable of controlling the Eye, Ancano decides to skip the safety manual and plug himself directly into the reactor. The result is chaos. A barrier surrounds the college. Magical anomalies, floating wisps of raw, hostile energy, start terrorizing the town. Savos Aran, the Archmage, is blown away and killed instantly. Ancano achieves godlike power, but he has no idea what to do with it. He's just standing in the middle of the room, glowing and shouting, while the world unravels around him. The lesson here is about the imposter's consequence. Ancano didn't earn this power. He didn't study the ancient texts, he didn't meditate like the Greybeards, he didn't even do the legwork like Septimus. He just saw a shiny button and pressed it because he believed his high elf blood made him superior to the laws of magic. He represents the person who buys a Ferrari, but doesn't know how to drive stick, and immediately wraps it around a telephone pole. This storyline introduces the Sigic Order, and with them our Fustjaw obscure lore tidbit. The Sigics are the monks of the old ways, based on the hidden Isle of Artaeum. They appear to you in frozen time, warning you of the danger. But here is the deep cut. The Sigics don't view magic as spells, they view it as the forces of nature, or ancestor spirits. To them, the Eye of Magnus isn't just an artifact, it is likely a leftover fragment of creation itself, possibly the literal architectural blueprints of the mortal plane, Mundus, designed by the god Magnus before he fled to Aetherius. When Ancano messes with it, he isn't just casting a big spell, he is rewriting the gravity and physics of the local area. He is editing the source code of the universe with a hammer. The Sigic intervention also highlights a massive power gap. These monks can stop time. They can teleport objects instantly. They look at Ancano, a powerful Thalmor wizard, and treat him like a toddler with a handgun. They don't even fight him. They just wait for you to unplug the controller so they can take the toy away. The climax of this questline sparks a significant community debate. The Sarthal connection. The game tells us the Eye was found in Sarthal, the first human city in Skyrim. Lore fans have long debated, was the Eye the reason the Snow Elves attacked Sarthal in the Night of Tears? The history books say the elves attacked because humans were breeding too fast, but finding a cosmic WMD in the basement suggests the elves attacked to secure the Eye, fearing what humans would do with it. If this theory is true, Ancano is actually repeating history. He is a high elf trying to reclaim the power that his ancestors slaughtered thousands to possess. It turns the quest from a simple, bad guy wants power story into a millennial-spanning grudge match over a nuclear bomb. The fight with Ancano is mechanically telling. He is invulnerable. You can hit him with your best sword or your strongest shout, and his health bar doesn't move. He is protected by the eye. To defeat him, you have to use the Staff of Magnus to drain the eye's energy, cutting off his supply. It's a mechanic that reinforces the narrative, and Kano is nothing without the eye. He has no strength of his own. He is a parasite feeding on a host he doesn't understand, and when he dies, it's messy. He doesn't have a noble speech. He just crumbles. The Psijics materialize, take the eye. The world is not ready for this, they say, a polite way of saying, you people are too stupid for this, and vanish. This leaves you as the Archmage, and let's be honest, this is the biggest imposter syndrome moment in the game. You might be a warrior who only knows a healing spell or a thief who uses scrolls, yet you're given the robes and the quarters. The game makes you the one with unearned authority now. It's a subtle, perhaps unintentional mirror to Ancano. Will you be a wise leader like Tolfdir, or will you let the title go to your head? The tragedy of the college questline is the death of Savos Aren. He's a tragic figure, a man who, as revealed in the labyrinthian dungeon crawl, sacrificed his two best friends years ago to contain a dragon priest just to keep the college safe. He lived with that guilt for decades, only to be killed by a bureaucrat who thought he knew better. Savos understood the cost of magic, and Ancano only understood the profit. We must also touch on the magical anomalies that Ancano unleashes. These enemies are essentially floating glitches. They are fast, hit like trucks, and drop soul gems when they die. They represent raw, unrefined magic. They are what happens when you remove the structure from the spell. They are pure chaos. Ancano thought he could channel the river. Instead, he broke the dam and drowned the valley. The visual storytelling in the Hall of the Elements during the final battle is striking. The eye opens up, revealing a swirling galaxy inside. The light is blinding. The sound is a deafening roar. It feels like the universe is tearing open. Contrast this with the quiet, dusty libraries of the Arcaneum where Urag Groshub protects the books. The library is safe because it is respectful of knowledge. The hall becomes a war zone because Ancano disrespected the power he held. As you sit in the Archmage's quarters afterwards, surrounded by the magical garden and the fancy loot, the lesson settles in. Power that is taken, rather than earned, is volatile. Ancano wanted to be a god, but he ended up being a conduit, a fuse that blew because the voltage was too high. The Psijic Order's final words echo, "We have watched you, and we are pleased." They aren't pleased because you are the most powerful mage. They are pleased because you cleaned up the mess. You put the dangerous toy away. You proved that you understand limits. But not everyone in Skyrim understands limits. In fact, some families are built on the refusal to accept the most fundamental limit of all, death. We are leaving the cold winds of Winterhold and heading to a castle secluded in the misty northwest, where a father's love has twisted into a centuries-long nightmare. We are going to meet the Volkihar clan, and we are going to learn that blood is thicker than water, but it is also much harder to wash off. From the intellectual ruins of Winterhold, we take a boat through the freezing, mist-shrouded waters of the Sea of Ghosts. We are heading to the extreme northwest, to an island that doesn't appear on most maps. Here, rising from the fog like a jagged tooth, stands Castle Volkihar. We have seen families broken by death, the shattered home in Helgen, and families broken by betrayal, the Dark Brotherhood. But now we encounter a family broken by eternity. We are here to talk about Serana, Lord Harkon, and the hardest lesson of them all. Just because someone shares your blood, it doesn't mean they own your life. Entering Castle Volkihar is a masterclass in Gothic atmosphere. The stone is black, the gargoyles watch you with hunger, and the dining tables are littered with cattle, thralls who exist only to be fed upon. It is a place of opulence and rot. This is the home of the Volkihar clan, the oldest and most powerful vampire coven in Skyrim. This brings us to our core in-game fact. Lord Harkon, the Patriarch, has succumbed to a madness that makes Ancano look reasonable. He has discovered a prophecy called the Tyranny of the Sun. His goal is simple. He wants to use the blood of a daughter of Coldharbour, his own daughter Serana, and Oriel's bow to blot out the sun permanently. In his mind, this will create a paradise where vampires can hunt freely at any hour, no longer fearing the lethal touch of daylight. To Harkon, his family are not people, they are assets. He locked Serana away in a stone crypt for thousands of years, with an Elder Scroll strapped to her back, just to keep her safe until he needed her for the ritual. When she returns, thanks to you, he doesn't hug her. He doesn't ask how she is. He demands the scroll. He treats her like a misplaced car key that has finally been found. This dynamic sets the stage for the most nuanced companion arc in the game. Serana is not a silent follower. She complains about the weather. She comments on the architecture. She interacts with the world. But beneath her sarcasm lies a deep, festering wound. She loves her father, but she realizes he is a monster. Not because he drinks blood, she does that too, but because he is willing to destroy the world and sacrifice his own child for a taste of absolute dominion. Let's pause for a cheeky reality check on Harkon's plan. It is, objectively, the stupidest evil scheme in the history of the Elder Scrolls. Think about it. If you block out the sun, the plants die. If the plants die, the herbivores die. If the herbivores die, the humans starve. If the humans die, the vampires starve. Harkon is planning a global ecological collapse that would result in his own extinction within a decade. It is a testament to how narcissism blinds you to basic logic. He is so focused on his own inconvenience, getting a sunburn, that he is willing to burn down the entire grocery store. But the horror of the Volkihar clan goes deeper than bad resource management. It brings us to our obscure lore tidbit. The origin of Serana and her mother Valerica as daughters of Coldharbour, pure-blooded vampirism in the Elder Scrolls, isn't just a disease you catch from a bat bite. It is a pact with Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination, and, to put it delicately, violation. To become a daughter of Coldharbour, a woman must undergo a ritual that is essentially a survival horror ordeal involving the prince himself. It is a harrowing, traumatic event that leaves the survivor with immense power, but deep scars. Knowing this recontextualizes Serana's character entirely. She is a survivor of divine abuse. Her gift is a reminder of her violation. For her father to then try to use that same blood to fuel his ego is a double betrayal. It means her entire existence, from her rebirth as a vampire to her potential death on his altar, has been dictated by the desires of toxic men. This heavy theme fuels a long-standing mess. Community debate. Why can't you marry Serana? In the vanilla game, Serana is the only major follower who explicitly rejects a marriage proposal. Many players were frustrated by this. She is popular, voiced beautifully by Laura Bailey, and has the most content. Why block the romance? The answer, debated fiercely by loreheads, lies in her trauma. Serana's arc is about reclaiming her autonomy. She has spent eras being controlled by Molag Bal, by her father, by her mother, who also used her as a pawn in her own way. If she were to immediately marry the Dragonborn, she would just be trading one owner for another. Her refusal is her victory. She's saying, "For the first time in history, I belong to myself." She needs time to heal, not a wedding ring. It is a surprisingly mature writing choice in a game that usually lets you marry someone after bringing them one mammoth tusk. The climax of the Dawnguard DLC takes place in the family cathedral. It is a tragic showdown. Harkon transforms into the Vampire Lord, a grotesque, bat-like gargoyle form. He offers you a final chance to betray Serana and give him the bow. When you refuse, he turns on his own daughter without hesitation. "You're nothing to me," he sneers. The fight is mechanically intense, with Harkon teleporting, shielding himself with blood magic and summoning gargoyles. But the emotional weight is heavy. Serana fights alongside you. She is flinging ice spikes at her own father. Listen to her dialogue during the fight. She isn't cheering. She sounds desperate. "It didn't have to be this way," she cries. When Harkon finally falls, turning into a pile of red ash and gore, there is no celebration. Serana stands over the remains. I think that's it," she says quietly. "He's really gone." The lesson of the Volkihar clan is that shared blood does not obligate you to shared toxicity. We often hear the phrase, "blood is thicker than water," implying that family loyalty should supersede everything else. But Serana teaches us that when family becomes a cage, you are allowed to break the bars. She had to kill her past to save her future. She had to accept that the man she remembered from her childhood was dead long before you drove a sword through his chest. Valerica, Serana's mother, offers a foil to this. We find her trapped in the Soul Cairn, a bleak, purple dimension where lost souls wander. Valerica loved Serana, yes, but she also objectified her. She locked Serana away to protect the prophecy, effectively robbing her daughter of thousands of years of life. Both parents used Serana as a game piece in their marital spat. By defying both of them, Serana breaks a cycle of manipulation that spanned eras. The aesthetic of the Soul Cairn deserves a mention here as a reflection of the vampire's soul. It is empty, cold, and drains your life force constantly. It is a place of hunger without satisfaction. This is what Harkon was fighting for, an eternity of this. By stopping him, you aren't just saving the sun, you're saving the definition of life from being twisted into mere existence. There is a moment of quiet bonding that happens if you sit with Serana anywhere in the world. She talks about her childhood, about playing in the gardens before the darkness took over. It reminds you that monsters are made, not born. Harkon wasn't always a demon, he was a king who feared death. His fear consumed his love until there was nothing left but hunger. As you leave Castle Volkihar, perhaps with the sun breaking through the clouds, a beautiful irony, the air feels lighter. You have Auriel's bow on your back, a weapon of light reclaimed from the dark. Serana walks with you, not as a servant and not as a quest item, but as a friend. She has broken the cycle. The cycle of blood is a difficult lesson because it requires us to make hard boundaries with people we are supposed to love. But in the frozen, harsh world of Skyrim, boundaries are the only things that keep the cold out. And speaking of boundaries and those who have crossed every single one of them, we are nearing the end of our mortal challenges. We have defeated dragons, mad gods, and vampire lords. What is left? Who is left to fight? Well, there is one person. A figure clad in black armour who stands alone on a mountain pass waiting for you. He has done everything you have done. He has conquered every dungeon and slain every beast, and now he is bored. We are heading to the last vigil to meet the Ebony Warrior and to learn the curse of absolute victory. We have travelled from the chopping block of Helgen to the soul-draining castles of the vampires. We have saved the world, arguably, 3 or 4 times over. We are clad in dragonbone armour, enchanted to make us virtually invincible. We can shout mountains apart. We have more gold than the East Empire Company, and more cheese wheels than is medically advisable. And this brings us to the strangest, most melancholy lesson in all of Skyrim, the curse of absolute victory. You're walking through Whiterun or Solitude minding your own business when a towering figure approaches you. He's clad from head to toe in pitch black ebony armour. He doesn't draw his weapon. He doesn't threaten you. He simply speaks with a deep, weary resignation. "The time has come," he says. "I have done all that can be done. There is nothing left. No quest to be undertaken. No villains to be slain. No challenges to face. This is the Ebony Warrior. Here is our core in-game fact. This encounter is mechanically gated. The Ebony Warrior only appears when you reach level 80. In the original release of the game, this was the soft cap, essentially the limit of what was reasonable to achieve. To see him, you must have mastered almost every skill, explored almost every dungeon, and crafted the finest gear. He lists his resume. He has conquered all enemies, solved all riddles, and won all glories. Now he has only one goal left. He wants a warrior's death so he can enter Sovngarde. And since you are the only entity in the world strong enough to kill him, he is asking you to murder him. It is a jarring request. Usually NPCs beg you to save them. This man begs you to end him. He challenges you to meet him at his last vigil, a lonely camp high in the Velethi Mountains. The Ebony Warrior represents the Saitama problem from One Punch Man, the existential boredom that comes with unlimited power. When the struggle ends, the meaning often evaporates. We spend the entire game grinding to get stronger, to get that better sword, to unlock that final perk. We think the destination is the goal, but the Ebony Warrior stands as a grim warning. The destination is empty. The joy was in the struggle. The thrill was in the danger. When the danger is gone, all that is left is a cold wind and a heavy suit of armour. This encounter sparks a fascinating community debate regarding his identity. Who is he? Some fans theorise he is an avatar of Raymond Ebonarm, a forgotten god of war from the older lore, Daggerfall era, who was often depicted as a Black Knight. Others suggest he is a manifestation of Sithis, or even Ebonarm's enemy. But the most compelling theory is that the Ebony Warrior is a mirror of you, the player. Think about it. He has no name. He has no backstory other than, I did everything. He uses the Thum, shouts, which is incredibly rare for non-Dragonborn. He uses perks that only players usually access. He is what happens to the Dragonborn 30 years down the line. He is the player who has 100% completed the game and is now just wandering around, bored, waiting for a mod or a DLC to give them purpose. He is the end game personified. The trek to the last vigil is solemn. You aren't rushing to save a village. You're marching to a funeral. When you arrive, he is waiting. The view is breathtaking. You're on the roof of the world, even higher than the Greybeards, looking out over the jagged peaks towards Morrowind. The fight itself is a brutal reality check. The Ebony Warrior is arguably the toughest enemy in the game. He reflects damage back at you. He can paralyze you. He can shout unrelenting force and blast you off the cliff, which, let's be honest, is hilarious karma after we've done it to so many goats. For the first time in 50 levels, you might actually have to use a potion. You might actually sweat, and there is a thrill in that, isn't there? For a few minutes, the boredom lifts. You are fighting for your life again. You realise that Hyr is giving you a gift. By challenging you, he is letting you feel mortal one last time. Let's touch on an obscure lore tidbit about his gear. Ebony in the Elder Scrolls is not just a black metal. It is the crystallised blood of Lorcan, the dead god who tricked the Aedra into creating the world. When you wear ebony, you're wearing the blood of the Creator. The Ebony Warrior is literally clad in divinity. This connects back to the idea of him being a Shizareen, or a divine avatar. He's wrapped in the substance of the god who died so the world could exist. He is seeking to follow that path, to die so that his story can be complete. The gore and violence of this fight feel different. It's not the frantic, messy violence of a bandit raid. It's a duel of titans. Swords clash with the sound of thunder. If you use a finisher move, driving your blade through his chest, he doesn't scream. He gasps, "At last! Sovngarde!" There is peace in his voice. He got what he wanted. He didn't want to win, he wanted to lose. But here is the tragedy. You won. You stand over his body on the snowy peak. You can loot his armour, the best in the game, but do you need it? You're already the Dragonborn. You already killed him. The reward is useless because you have surpassed the need for rewards. You are now the one standing on the mountain with nothing left to fight. The mantle of the bored god has passed to you. You are now the Ebony Warrior. This section teaches us that success is a paradox. We strive for completion, for the moment when all the boxes are checked and the bank account is full. But the human spirit, and apparently the Redguard spirit as he is a Redguard, craves friction. We need obstacles to define us. Without a dragon to fight, who is the Dragonborn? Just a weirdo shouting at the sky. The game doesn't roll credits when he dies. The wind just keeps blowing. The music swells, then fades. You have to walk back down the mountain, and that walk is the loneliest walk in the game. You realise that the quests, the annoying couriers, the bandit attacks, those were the good times. Those were the moments you were living. The curse of absolute victory is that you survive it. You have to keep living in a world that can no longer surprise you. Unless you look where you haven't looked before. We have conquered the surface. We have conquered the mountains. We have conquered the skies. But there is one place left. A place hidden beneath the very feet of the world. A place so alien and beautiful that it reminds us that mystery never truly dies. It just goes underground. We're going to open a mechanism that hasn't turned in 4,000 years. We're going to descend into the glowing, fungal dreamscape of Blackreach. We're going to find beauty in the darkness. We leave the lonely, wind-scoured peak of the Ebony Warrior, where the world felt too small and too conquered. We're seeking a cure for that existential boredom, a reminder that Skyrim still holds secrets that can take your breath away. To find it, we don't look up at the stars. We look down, past the dirt, past the rock, into the hollow chest of the world. We are descending into Blackreach. If you played Skyrim back in 2011, you remember the moment. You're trudging through the endless steampunky corridors of Alfdand or Mzinchaleft. You're tired of fighting Dwemer spiders. You just want to find the Elder Scroll and go home. You insert the attunement sphere into a pedestal. A heavy bronze gate hisses open, and you step through. Suddenly the ceiling disappears. The stone walls recede into infinity. You're standing on a balcony overlooking a cavern so vast it has its own weather system. Huge, glowing blue mushrooms the size of skyscrapers tower over you. Bioluminescent jellyfish float through the air like silent spirits. In the centre, a massive artificial brass sun hangs suspended in the dark, casting a pale, ghostly light over a silent city. This brings us to our core in-game fact. Blackreach, or Falzardum Din in Dwemeris, is not just a cave. It is a subterranean geode ecosystem that spans a huge portion of the map. It connects 3 major Dwemer cities, acting as a superhighway and a capital for the Deep Elves. It completely subverts your understanding of the game's geography. You realise that while you were fighting wolves in the snow above, an entire alien civilization was rotting quietly beneath your boots. The lesson here is about hidden depth. Just when you think you understand the world, just when you think you've mapped every inch of the province, the game pulls the rug out from under you. It reminds us that reality has layers. The surface is just the skin. The organs are underneath, strange and beautiful and terrifying. But let's be honest, Blackreach is also a nightmare for anyone with a poor sense of direction. It is a labyrinth of elevators, farmer camps and sudden drops into abysses, and it is the home of the most infamous fetch quest in the game, a return to your roots. You see a red plant glowing in the dark. It emits a distinct high-pitched chime. This is the Crimson Nirnroot. The game asks you to find 30 of them, just 30. It sounds easy. It is not. This quest has broken the spirits of countless completionists. You spend hours wandering the dark, listening for that infernal humming sound, getting sniped by Falmer archers hiding in the gloom. It is a reality check on the beauty of the place. Yes, it's gorgeous, but it also wants you to work for its secrets. However, the true secret of Blackreach isn't the plants, it's what sleeps above the city. This leads to our obscure lore tidbit. High above the debate hall, hanging directly under the cavern ceiling, is that massive glowing brass sphere, the artificial sun. Most players look at it, think, ooh, pretty, and move on. But if you, the Dragonborn, decide to use your unrelenting force shout directly at the orb, something incredible happens. The gong-like sound resonates through the cavern, and a dragon appears. His name is Volthuriol. His name translates roughly to Dark Overlord Fire. He is unique among dragons because he lives underground. He doesn't fly in the sky, he slithers in the dark. Why is he there? Was he a prisoner of the Dwemer? A pet? Or is he hiding from Alduin? The lore doesn't say. He is a mystery wrapped in scales. Summoning him feels like waking up a kaiju. It transforms the serene, glowing atmosphere into a chaotic boss battle in the dark, lit only by dragon fire and glowing fungi. The existence of Volthuriol fuels a community debate about the nature of the Dwemer's relationship with dragons. We know the Dwemer were powerful, but were they powerful enough to keep a dragon as a chandelier decoration? Some theories suggest the artificial sun was a tonal containment field, keeping Volthuriol in stasis to power their city, much like a nuclear reactor. It reinforces the idea that the Dwemer saw everything, even majestic divine dragons, as just another battery to be plugged in. Visually, Blackreach is the strongest argument for video games as art in Skyrim. The colour palette shifts from the greys and whites of the surface to deep teals, neon blues and crimson reds. The sound design changes too. The wind is gone, replaced by a low, cavernous thrumming and the dripping of water. It feels like you are underwater. It feels like you are on another planet. There is a profound melancholy here. You find the Sinderian's Field Laboratory, a small shack where an Altmer alchemist died trying to study the Nirnroots. His skeleton is still there, clutching his journal. It's a quiet testament to the dangerous thirst for knowledge we discussed earlier, but with a gentler tone. Sinderian didn't die from madness, he died from dedication. He found the most beautiful place in the world to be his tomb. The lesson of Blackreach is to look beneath the surface, in people, in situations, and in the world itself. The Ebony Warrior was bored because he only looked at the horizon. He forgot to look down. He forgot that the world is deep. There is wonder in the dark if you are brave enough to take the elevator down and patient enough to hunt for the red chimes. The horrors of the Falmer are here too, of course. We see their servants, surface dwellers they have kidnapped and enslaved. It's a grim reminder that this beauty is guarded by monsters. The Falmer, blinded and twisted, are the perfect residents for this dark paradise. They don't need to see the glowing mushrooms to know they own the place. As you finally find the exit, usually a lift that takes you up to the surface miles away from where you entered, leaving you disoriented in the middle of a blizzard, you feel a strange sense of relief. The sky is back. The sun is real. But you carry the memory of the blue light with you. You know now that the world is hollow, and that in that hollowness there is a terrible silent majesty. We have explored the depths. We have mastered the surface. We have faced the past and the future. There is only one journey left to take. It is the journey every Nord prays for, and every hero must eventually face. We are going to die, or at least we are going to walk where the dead walk. We are going to the portal at Skuldafn, and we are stepping into the mead hall of the gods. The final lesson awaits in the golden light of Sovngarde. So, here we are, the end of the road. We have crawled through the mud of the Civil War, navigated the madness of Sheogorath, and descended into the glowing depths of the earth. Now, there is nowhere left to go but up. We are taking the one-way ticket to Skuldafn, a temple reachable only by dragonback, to step through the portal and walk among the gods. This is the final lesson, how to leave a mark on the world before you fade into the mist. It is the lesson of the hero's final rest. The journey begins with a flight. Capturing Odahviing, one of Alduin's lieutenants, and riding him to Skuldafn is a moment of pure cinematic glory. For a brief second, you aren't just a warrior, you're the master of the sky. But when you land, the tone shifts. Skuldafn is crawling with high-level Draugr and dragons. It is the final exam of your combat skills. At the summit waits the dragon priest Narkreen, guarding the portal. You take his staff, open the gate, and step into the light. You expect heaven to be peaceful. You expect harps and clouds. Instead, you step into a thick, suffocating fog. This brings us to our Heimdall core in-game fact. Sovngarde, the Nordic afterlife, is currently under siege. Alduin, the World Eater, isn't just burning villages in the mortal realm. He is here, in the spirit world, devouring the souls of the dead before they can reach the Hall of Valor. It is a terrifying concept. These souls have fought their whole lives to earn their rest, and now, on the doorstep of paradise, they are being eaten like popcorn by a cosmic dragon. This creates a pervasive sense of dread. You see Stormcloak soldiers and Imperial legionnaires wandering the mist, lost and afraid. They tell you there is no way to the hall, that Alduin is lurking. The clean slate of Helgen feels like a lifetime ago. Back then, you were running from Alduin to save your body. Now you are running toward him to save your soul. To reach the hall, you must pass Soon, the shield thane of Shor. He is a massive, shirtless god who acts as the bouncer for the afterlife. He challenges you. By what right do you request entry? It's a callback to every guild and title you've earned. You can claim entry as the Listener, the Archmage, the Harbinger, or simply as the Dragonborn. It is the game acknowledging your entire resume. You fight him, not to the death, but to prove your spirit, and he lets you cross the Whalebone Bridge. The visual design of the Hall of Valor is breathtaking. It is built from the bones of massive ancient beasts. The sky above is a swirling nebula of purple and gold, pulsating with the songs of the ancestors. Inside, the fire is warm, the mead never runs out, and the heroes of legend are waiting. You see Ysgramor, the founder of the Companions, sitting near the fire. You see Jurgen Windcaller, the founder of the Greybeards. All the threads of history we have pulled on, the warriors, the pacifists, the kings, converge here. It is a reunion of legends, and they are all looking at you, but there is someone missing. This leads us to our obscure lore, Tidbit. The throne of Shor is empty. Shor is the Nordic name for Lorcan, the missing god, the creator of the mortal plane. He is the lord of Sovngarde, yet he is nowhere to be seen. When you ask the heroes where he is, they give a vague answer. Shor's high seat stands empty. His mien is too bright for mortal eyes. This explanation seems convenient, doesn't it? It fuels the ultimate community debate and fan theory that ties our entire journey together. You're not seeing Shor because you are Shor. The theory posits that the Dragonborn is a Shezarine, a mortal avatar of Lorcan. You are the fox in the fable. You are the prisoner who can change the dream. You are the god walking among men. The reason the throne is empty is that the king has finally returned home, but he is currently wearing a helmet and carrying a Daedric sword. When you sit in that chair, which the game lets you do, you fit perfectly. The heroes follow your lead not just because you are the Dragonborn, but because their boss has finally arrived to lead the charge, and lead them you do. You don't fight Alduin alone. You join forces with the three ancient tongues, Gormleth Golden Hilt, Hakon One Eye, and Feldir the Old. These are the heroes who banished Alduin in the first place using the Elder Scroll. Together, you step out of the hall and into the mist. You use the clear skies shout. It is the ultimate application of the Greybeards' lesson. You're not using the voice to kill, you're using it to clear away the fear, the darkness, and the confusion. You shout 4 times, in unison with the heroes, blowing away the soul snare mist until the sky is clear and Alduin is forced to face you. The final battle is a spectacle. Alduin rains down meteors, he shouts fire and frost, but he is afraid. For the first time, the World Eater realizes he is the prey. When you strike the final blow, there is no ragdoll physics. Alduin screams in agony, his physical form violently tearing apart. His soul doesn't get absorbed by you like a normal dragon. Instead, it explodes upward, returning to Akatosh. He is unmade. The sky of Sovngarde bursts into light. The mists are gone forever. The souls of the dead cheer. Alduin is fallen. The World Eater is dead. It is the moment of absolute victory. You have saved not just the world, but the afterlife. You have ensured that honor still has meaning. But here is the twist. You cannot stay. Tsun meets you at the bridge. Your work is not done, he says. You're still alive. You have a pulse. The mead of Sovngarde is for the dead, and you are painfully, gloriously alive. He shouts you back to Mundus, back to the throat of the world. You land in the snow, surrounded by dragons, but they aren't attacking. They are mourning, or perhaps celebrating in their own way. They shout in unison, acknowledging your power. Paarthurnax waits for you. The World Eater is no more, he rumbles. The final lesson is about the return. The hero's journey isn't a straight line to paradise, it's a circle. You went to the land of the dead to learn why life matters. You saw that the end is peaceful, that there is a warm hall waiting for you, but you also learned that you aren't ready for it yet. Leaving a mark on the world means going back to the mud, the politics, and the grey morality. It means dealing with the Thieves' Guild and the Dark Brotherhood. It means building a house in Falkreath and adopting a kid. It means living. Alduin wanted to eat the world because he thought it was finished. He thought the Kalpa was over. You proved him wrong. You proved that this world, with all its flaws, its wars and its vampires, is still worth fighting for. You proved that the story isn't over until you say it is. As you stand on the mountain one last time, looking out over the tundra of Whiterun, the sun rising over the high Hrothgar, you realise something. You're no longer the prisoner in the cart. You're no longer the student of the voice. You are the legend. The world is yours now. Not to conquer, like a dragon, but to protect, like a god. The wind howls, but it doesn't feel cold anymore. It feels like applause. And so, we come to the end of our chronicle. The fire has burned down to glowing embers, casting long soft shadows against the walls of our own personal sanctuary. The dragons have returned to their mountaintops. The Draugr sleep in their crypts, and the great wheel of Skyrim continues to turn, safe for another age. We have travelled a long way together tonight, haven't we? From the terrifying confusion of Helgen to the silent, starry majesty of the Hall of Valor. We've walked through the golden forests of the Rift, swam in the icy waters of the Sea of Ghosts, and lost ourselves in the glowing depths of Blackreach. We've learned that strength isn't just about swinging a sword, but about controlling the beast within, respecting the silence, and knowing when to break the rules for the right reasons. Take a deep breath now. Let the tension of the battles fade away. Let the noise of the shouts and the clashing steel dissolve into the quiet hum of the night. You don't need to carry the weight of the world anymore. The prophecy is fulfilled. The scroll is rolled up and put away. Imagine yourself back in a warm inn, maybe the sleeping giant in Riverwood, or the bannered mare in Whiterun. The bard is playing a soft, slow tune on the lute. The fire is crackling rhythmically. Outside, the snow is falling gently, blanketing the world in silence. But inside, you are warm. You are safe. You have earned your rest. The hero can finally close their eyes. The adventure will always be there waiting for you. But for now, the story is done. Sweet dreams.